In August 1951, while spending his last days in Paris, Emmett Fox left a written instruction that the world ignored for more than 70 years. It was hidden in his own books in plain sight, with no codes, no secret messages, nothing to make anyone suspect that one of the most powerful ideas he had ever shared was right there. Years later, an ordinary woman from Texas discovered it and put it into practice in absolute silence. And she ended up getting a 4,300 square foot house, 3 cars, and over $100,000 in prizes, without working more hours, without winning the lottery, and without receiving an inheritance. Just by following that instruction that Fox wrote before he died, which millions of people read without understanding its true meaning. Today, you are going to learn it. But first, stop for a moment. Don't keep scrolling. Don't open another tab. Stay here. Because what you're about to hear isn't another video about manifestation. It's something completely different. A teaching that remained hidden in plain sight for more than 7 decades inside a small booklet that millions of people read believing they understood its content, when in reality they missed the most important part. Emmett Fox wrote it, he published it, distributed thousands, and it was heard by many, understood its content, when in reality they missed the most important part. Emmett Fox wrote it, he distributed copies, and even so, the most valuable instruction he left on paper was ignored again and again. Why? Because when a person is not yet ready for a truth, they can read it 100 times and still not see it. They take it as just a nice phrase, an unimportant detail, a footnote, when in reality that was the key to everything. But before I reveal it to you, I need your mind to be in the right state to receive it. Fox taught something that many so-called gurus today seem to have forgotten. The most transformative information in the world can go in one ear and out the other without changing anything at all. If your inner world still isn't ready to receive it, yes. The problem isn't always the information. Sometimes it's the hard drive where you're trying to store it. Do this right now. Place the palms of your hands over your eyes. Cover them completely. Feel the darkness. Breathe deeply. And while you remain there, in that black space behind your hands, repeat out loud or in silence, but with all the conviction you can gather. What my eyes have not yet seen. My invisible prototype is complete. It is done. Repeat it 3 times without rushing, like someone who is not begging for something to happen, but rather remembering a truth that has always been there. Do it now. If you did it, you just performed what Fox called the first act of an awakened consciousness. Close your physical eyes to open the eyes of the soul, because those are the only ones capable of contemplating what the physical world does not yet reflect. Now write this phrase exactly like this in the comments. I am already who I want to be. The rest is just catching up to me. It's done. Don't write it as a wish, not as a hope either. Write it as a declaration of something that is already real, even if it hasn't taken shape before your eyes yet. Do it now. Fox said that those who dare to take the first step before seeing the whole path are the only ones who end up reaching the destination. What you are about to discover remained hidden for more than 70 years. Not because someone hid it, but because almost no one knew what they were looking for. And the deepest truths are often hidden in the most obvious place, right where anyone could find them if they learned to look at things differently. Emmett Fox. He was born on July 30th, 1886 in Cobb, a small island to the south of Ireland. A place surrounded by the sea where the sky could change in a matter of minutes. There, you learn very quickly that nothing stays the same forever, and that many times the fiercest storm is just the sign of an unexpected calm. His father was a doctor and also a member of Parliament, a respected man, influential, one of those whose presence filled any room. But he died when Emmett was still very young. That loss changed the course of his life. With a broken heart, he began to ask himself a question that only those who have truly suffered dare to face. Why does pain exist? Is there a law that explains why some lives seem to fall apart while others flourish, even though no one understands the reason? That question stayed with him while he was studying electrical engineering in England, and it followed him during his years working with wires, circuits, and formulas, until he began to perceive something that no technical equation could explain. He discovered that the mind seemed to influence reality, not as an inspiring metaphor, not as a nice idea to sell books, but as a law that, according to him, worked with the same precision as electricity does. Then he did something that few dare to do. He left engineering, he gave up stability. He left behind the safe path to dedicate himself completely to the study of new thought. On that journey, he met Thomas Troward, one of the most influential spiritual figures of his time. And in 1928, he began giving lectures in London. At first, he spoke to very small groups, 20 people, 30 if he was lucky. No one imagined that this man, who could barely gather a handful of attendees, would end up becoming one of the most listened to spiritual voices of his time. But there was something in his message that, once you heard it, you couldn't get it out of your head. It was that strange feeling that finally someone stopped telling you what you wanted to hear and started telling you what you needed to hear. In 1931, Emmett Fox arrived in the United States. That same year, he took over the leadership of the Divine Science Church of the Healing Christ in New York. It was a small place for someone who, not long after, would end up filling Carnegie Hall, the Hippodrome, and the Manhattan Opera House. Stages reserved for the biggest names in entertainment began to fill with thousands of people who were not there to see a show. They went to listen to a 45-year-old Irish minister talk about just one thing, the law of the mind. And here's the detail that completely changes the story. Do you know what the United States was experiencing at that very moment? The Great Depression. The greatest economic collapse of the modern era. Millions of people unemployed. Entire families losing everything. People who one day had stability and the next didn't even have enough to eat. The whole country was steeped in uncertainty. Fear was in the air. While most preachers were urging people to resign themselves, to be patient, and to wait for better times, Emmett Fox was gathering 5,000 people every Sunday. 5,000. And it wasn't because he appeared in all the newspapers, nor because he had advertising campaigns. There weren't even algorithms to blame for it. People went because he offered something much more valuable than any empty promise. He offered an explanation. A truth that, according to those who put it into practice, kept working even when everything around seemed to be falling apart. But almost no one knew that, during those 2 decades speaking in front of thousands of people, Fox always kept one last piece of the puzzle to himself. There was a deeper layer, an instruction that appeared in his writing so discreetly that most people read it without realizing it was there. In 1935, he published a small pamphlet, without a flashy cover, without a striking title, nothing that would make you think it hid an extraordinary secret. He called it the 7-Day Mental Diet, a name so simple that anyone would have thought it was just another piece of wellness advice. But that modest pamphlet probably contained the most powerful teaching that Fox ever put in writing. The proposal was simple. For 7 days in a row, with no exceptions, no breaks, and without cheating yourself, you would not allow a negative thought to remain in your mind for more than a few seconds. It didn't mean pretending that everything was fine. It didn't mean denying reality. It meant something much more difficult. Refusing to keep feeding what you don't want to see grow by giving it your attention. Fox understood the mind the way an engineer understands an electrical circuit. Thoughts are connections, and the circuits that receive power are the ones that stay on. In other words, whatever you focus your attention on ends up getting stronger. But at the end of the brochure, almost hidden among the last lines, there was a phrase that the vast majority overlooked. A phrase that remained ignored for more than 70 years. Fox wrote, "Don't tell anyone that you're doing this diet or that you're planning to start it. Keep this big project completely to yourself. Remember, your soul should be the secret place of the Most High." Listen carefully to those words, because silence was not a gentle suggestion. It was not a display of humility, nor a spiritual tradition. It was part of the mechanism. It was the condition. It was the law within the law. Fox had known it since 1935, but most people got to that paragraph, closed the pamphlet, and went on with their lives. Now you understand why he insisted so much on keeping quiet. Fox taught what he called the law of the mental equivalent, a law that stated something very specific. You can't receive in the outer world what doesn't yet have an equivalent built within you. You can't hold more money than your mind considers possible. You can't live a life that your consciousness still sees as unattainable. You can't experience greater abundance than the inner capacity you've developed to receive it. Imagine that your mind is a container. If it can only hold 100, that's the most it will be able to sustain. If you learn to hold 1,000,000, then you'll be prepared for 1,000,000. That's why the real work isn't just about chasing external results. It's about building inside yourself a prototype that's so solid, so detailed, and so real that sooner or later, reality ends up resembling it. But here's the point that almost nobody understands. That inner prototype is extremely fragile while it's still coming into being. It's like a small flame that's just been lit. A simple breath is enough to put it out. What does that breath represent? Other people's opinions, doubts, skepticism, the fears of those around you. When you share your vision before it has taken root, you allow other minds to enter the process. And those people, even if they have good intentions, bring their own experiences with them. Their failures, their disappointments, the times they tried something and it didn't work out, the limitations they ended up accepting as if they were universal laws. All of that comes into contact with your inner creation. And without anyone intending it, it can weaken something that hasn't finished forming yet. Fox explained it with an image that his students never forgot. A manifestation is like a seed. While it remains underground, protected from the wind and the sun, it silently develops roots. No one sees it, but it's growing. Now imagine that out of impatience you dig it up every day to check if it has already sprouted. You don't destroy it because the seed is bad. You destroy it because it wasn't time to expose it yet. That's why, for Fox, silence wasn't a spiritual accessory. It was the ground where everything else could grow. And it was precisely that teaching that a completely ordinary woman decided to take to its logical extreme. Her name was Helen Hadsall. She was born in 1924 in the heart of the United States. She wasn't famous. She wasn't rich. She didn't belong to any elite. She was a mother, a housewife, living a life that from the outside seemed just like that of millions of people, until she discovered New Thought. And from that moment on, something inside her awoke with a strength that would never fade again. Helen studied the principles of New Thought with a depth that very few achieve. She didn't read them just once or twice. She went back to them again and again until she understood something that most people overlook. It wasn't the technique that produced the results, but the law behind it. Then she understood that the mental equivalent wasn't something you asked for. It was something you built with precision, in detail, until the mind accepted it as reality. And above all, in silence. He decided to put that teaching to the test. Not with a small goal, but with everything. He started entering contests, not as a hobby, but as an experiment to test the law. He had understood something very simple. In a contest, your connections, your money, or your social status don't matter. The only thing that matters is whether you've built the mental equivalent of winning. And the results were surprising. He won trips, appliances, bicycles, cars, cash, prize after prize. While everyone talked about luck, Helen calmly replied, "The law simply works." But the moment that changed her story came when she decided to manifest something that seemed impossible. A house. Not just any house. A home of more than 4,300 square feet with a garden, a fully equipped kitchen, and space for her whole family. She sat in silence and began to build it in her mind with an extraordinary level of detail. She visualized every room, the colors, the floor, the smell of the wood, the feeling of walking through its hallways. And then she did the most important thing. She didn't tell anyone. She protected that vision exactly as Emmett Fox had taught. When the right contest came up, she entered with complete calmness. She didn't feel like she was trying to get a house. She felt like she was simply going to claim something that already existed within her. And she won the actual house. So similar to the one she had built in her mind that she ended up crying. Not out of surprise, but because she felt like she already knew it. For more than 30 years, Helen Hadsall won over 5,000 contests. That's why the press dubbed her the Queen of Contests. But she always gave the same explanation. It's not luck, it's law. First, you build the equivalent inside yourself. You protect it in silence, and then reality ends up catching up with you. Now let's talk about the method. The process of the invisible prototype consists of 3 steps. First step, build the invisible prototype. Fox taught that everything must first exist in the mind before appearing in the physical world. It wasn't enough to say, "I want more money." That's too vague. Define exactly what you want. Then close your eyes and create a scene in which you are already living it. Don't imagine the moment of getting it, but the moment of having it. Add sounds, smells, sensations, details until your mind perceives it as something completely real. That's the mental equivalent. And once it's built, according to Fox, the outside world will end up reflecting it. Second step, the 7-day mental diet. For 7 days, don't allow thoughts of doubt, fear, or scarcity to remain in your mind. Don't fight against them. Just stop feeding them. Every time they show up, go back to your invisible prototype and remind yourself that it's already done. Fox said this was the hardest part because most of us have spent years letting our minds think on autopilot without consciously choosing which ideas deserve to stay. Fox said that changing that habit in just 7 days requires the attention of a cat watching a mouse. No distractions, no excuses, none of that classic "I'll start tomorrow." But those who complete those 7 days never think the same way again. Not as a motivational phrase, but as a change that, according to those who practiced it, transforms the way you relate to reality. Third step, the seal of silence. Here is the instruction that Fox wrote down and that almost everyone overlooked. When you have built your invisible prototype and started your mental diet, don't tell anyone, no one, not even your partner, not even your best friend. not even to the person you trust the most. Fox didn't present it as a recommendation. He taught it as an indispensable condition. Keep this great project completely to yourself. Remember that your soul must be the secret place of the Most High. Why? Because an inner project is very fragile while it is growing. The doubts, fears, and limitations of others can end up weakening something that hasn't taken root yet. Silence protects your creation. Just like the earth protects a seed, everything has its time. First, it is built in silence. Then, when it has already blossomed, it is shared. If you made it this far, I want to tell you something that probably wouldn't have made sense at the beginning of the video. Money was never the real goal. The house that Helen won wasn't either, nor the thousands of prizes. All of that was simply evidence that something much deeper had changed first: her identity. Fox summed it up brilliantly. I don't teach how to make money. I teach how to become the kind of person for whom money becomes a natural consequence. That difference changes everything. Because it's one thing to chase results, and it's a very different thing to become someone for whom those results are inevitable. Maybe while listening to this video, you felt something click, that an idea resonated with you. It wasn't a coincidence. It was recognition, as if a part of you remembered something it always knew, but had been buried under doubts and limiting beliefs. And if Fox could leave you with one last lesson, it would probably be this. The most important invisible prototype is not about an amount of money. It's about the person you become when that reality is already part of your life. Build that identity first. Protect it with silence. Nourish it with a disciplined mind. And let the outside world do the rest. After filling auditoriums for 20 years, Fox ended up summarizing his entire philosophy in a single idea. First you are, then you have, never the other way around. And maybe that was the real teaching that remained hidden for more than 70 years. As of today, it is done.